Ladies, gentlemen and all variations thereupon. Today we're going to be taking a little foray into the past, exploring some more historic fashion and historic garments. Now, I'm not a fashion historian, so take everything I say with a grain of salt and do your own research if you want to take this seriously. But in my passing interest of historic fashion for video ideas I've got in the future, I've stumbled upon some garments which are really quick to make, require absolutely no sewing, and I think look actually quite nice. So I'm going to walk you through how you can create these garments yourself if you so wish, and give some historical context for them. Well, like I say, I'm not a fashion historian, so take a grain of salt with the historical context. The first one I want to show is an Egyptian style, and it's made with just 2 meters of fabric. Now, if you're slightly smaller, you probably want less than 2 meters, but the thing with ancient Egypt is they didn't have the same taboos around nudity that we do. It's a very hot country, and in the past people just walked around wearing things that you would only find in adult shops nowadays. I mean, literally there's an Egyptian dress that's just netting. It's very revealing. So they would have worn things that just a piece of linen cloth that's a rectangle 2 meters long. I, however, am not going to do that because this is a family channel and YouTube likes to suppress things that are going to violate their terms of service by removing them from the site entirely. So I'm not going to be showing any nudity on this, but I am going to have to remove some layers of my clothing in order to make it look good. So, I'm going to go down to just a sports bra and leggings, which is probably the minimum I could do on YouTube and get away with it. Now, an important thing to remember is that time always robs history of its colour, and in the ancient world lots of different coloured fabrics would have been worn, and the colour of the fabric would normally denote something about a class. So if someone were to wear something that was dyed yellow or brown or something like that, something that's very easy to see in nature, that would probably be a low status person because that's an easy dye to make. Something that's bright red like this would have been something more high status, and the absolute top tier would have been Tyrian purple, the colour that only royalty or the imperial family of Rome would have worn, because it was that expensive, literally worth its weight in gold. But that being said, ancient Egypt, because of how hot it is there, a lot of the time people would have just worn white because it helps reflect the heat, and they probably would have worn linen a lot because linen is a very good material to wear in hot climates. It allows you to breathe a lot easier. So although the Egyptians had cotton and probably had the capacity to dye it red, they probably would have had something more like this, white linen, because it's very breathable, and because it's white it reflects the heat a lot better. That being said, that's 3 meters long and I don't want to cut it up just for this, so I'm going to show you with my 2 meter line of cotton. The way to do this dress is first hold it up as a big rectangle above your head, and then bring it down over your shoulders and grab pieces from under your arms and bring them together so that it sits just over the bust. Or if you don't have a bust, where a bust would be, the pecs. Then pin into place. In the ancient world they probably would have used some sort of bronze brooch or something, but I'm just using a safety pin, that's quite good to hand. So that all your fabric is gathered up there. And then these 2 flaps over the top come over the shoulders. And form something like a shawl to protect your shoulders from the sun. Then we pin these in place as well. And I'm actually going to use a 3rd safety pin to pin the top through the bottom, because safety pins weren't really designed to take this much strain, and I'm pretty sure that if I move around too much in these, the safety pins are just going to bend. As I'm of the English persuasion, my tongue tends not to want to bend to foreign words, So I'm not going to embarrass myself by continually mispronouncing the names of all these dresses, but this here is what the Egyptians called them, and Editor Bridget is going to put it in. I'm just waving my hands in the air. That's the name of this dress. And that doesn't look too bad. It's like makeshift sleeves that are made just by the folding of the fabric over. Very light and breezy. And as I said, the Egyptians didn't have the taboos around nudity, so they wouldn't have worn anything underneath, or at least we don't know that they wore anything underneath. I certainly haven't seen any images of Egyptian women in underwear, but it does mean that this can open very easily, and if you are moving your legs too much, you're just going to display that area. So if you're creating the dress yourself and you want something that you could actually wear, you might want to put another pin or something down closer to the crotchular region, just to make sure that everything stays shut. I don't need to because I'm wearing leggings underneath, but you may if you wish to just wear the dress with underwear. And that's the way it looks. Now this, I have to move the camera to get the shot down, but this is slightly too long at 2 meters, and it drags on the floor for me, and I'm 177 centimeters. For Americans that's 5'10" and a bit, something like that. So I'm fairly tall, so most women will probably want 1.5 meters, something like that. Meters about 1 yard for Americans. So, but that's your dress. It's a lovely little fold pattern down the front, I find, when it's pinned properly, and you might want to adjust it in a mirror. I have a mirror. I've just got the camera to look at a very small screen at a far distance to give the full size, but it just hangs down and it hangs really nicely. You've got quite free movement around your arms and shoulders, and can move your legs quite freely as well. So I think that's quite a nifty little dress. If you were to do this, I think in white linen would probably be best. Maybe trim it with yellow or blue around the edges. You probably get something that looks mostly Egyptian with a more modern twist to it. Good sort of summer evening gown, something like that, something to wear on your holidays. Anyway, that's the Egyptian one. Now for the Greek dress, I'm going to use the same cotton fabric, although the Greeks again probably would have used linen rather than cotton, especially the Greeks actually, because cotton would have been more expensive coming from Egypt, whereas linen would have been more locally available. One thing that is more accurate with this for the Greeks is the colour, because the Greeks, we like to think of them as having the austere white marble facing for all their buildings and wearing white togas and things, but as a matter of fact, the Greeks and the Romans as well were by our standards garish. They liked their bright colours and they put them everywhere. It was assaulting the level of colour. If you have a look at, just do a Google search for recoloured Roman statues or Greek statues, you'll see they're brightly coloured. The bright red colour of this fabric is more authentic, although the material is probably not as authentic, probably would have gone with linen. But still the same again, same 2 metre fabric. I'm going to tie this one instead this time in the Greek style. First you place it up at the shoulder, which already starts to make it look like a dress that's been draped. There, looks like a fancy evening dress. But what we're going to do instead is pull it around. You want to give enough space at the top so it can drape down around the neck. You don't want it pulling up tight against you. So make sure you've got enough space so it will drape there. But what you want to do then is wrap it around the back to the other side, and then pin it so that it sits like that at the top. Now, this is slightly more difficult to do on your own, so let's see how I go. Pinned at one shoulder. Then what we want is to pull this up. And pin it at the other shoulder so that it forms this bit of a loop. Now you do actually want to pin under the arm as well there so that it closes, but this dress is best worn with a belt, Now I only have this leather belt that I've made, this elvish belt, but I have ordered a chain belt that I think will work better, but even just a bit of string cord, that's probably what most poorer people would have been using anyway, or a bit of ribbon. So put this around the waist. And all women, remember, we are all different sizes, and men as well, so put this belt at the side height that you think suits you best. For me that's about belly button height, which is about here. But if you're a different shape to me, you might want it slightly higher at the empire line or lower down at the hips. And then we want to use the belt to create a fold at the top so that it becomes as if it's two layers, and then once it's in position there, I'm going to pin on this side under the arm to seal it up. So whilst the ancient Greeks, like the Egyptians, didn't have as much of a taboo about nudity, it was only male nudity they were okay with. Women still had to completely cover themselves up, and in fact, although we like to think of the Greeks as being the liberal democracy, in Athens women were treated more like they are today in places like Saudi Arabia than they are in Washington. It wasn't a good place to be a woman, except ironically in the totalitarian conservative city-state of Sparta, where women were more free than anywhere else. I've even heard that women were allowed to wrestle naked in Sparta, whereas in Athens you couldn't go outside without completely battering yourself. But so, this is the Greek dress. I believe it's pronounced chiton, with the CH being a sound like we're getting Welsh. So this is roughly how it looks like. Again, I'm trying to style it based on a screen on the opposite side of the room. But it's a nice simple outfit that's just pinned together. No sewing required, and it might need a little bit more space around the neck for my liking. But you know, just adjust it to the style that you want. Now, men would have also worn this. They wouldn't have worn it as long as I've got here, and this one, even though it's the same 2 metre, even though this is the same 2 metre piece of fabric that I did the Egyptian dresses, this one only comes up to the bottom of my calf because of the way it's been wrapped. The 2 metres goes around this way rather than down. So men would have worn this, and they would have worn it so it's just shorter, so it would have come top of the thighs. And when men wear this, it's not actually a tunic. If you ever see an image of an ancient Greek man wearing the chiton that goes down to here, it's not a tunic because they're not sewn. Tunics were Roman, togas were Roman. Greeks did not wear togas or tunics. They wore the chiton, which is open at the side, not sewn, it's just pinned. Men and women wore it. Women's is longer, men's is shorter. They both also wore the hymation. Now the hymation is translated as cloak into most modern texts, and it's really what's... if you see an image of Socrates, all Socrates would wear is the hymation, which is just a strip of linen that's wrapped around, looks a bit like a toga, but it's not a toga, it's a hymation. Togas were a lot bigger and a lot more cumbersome, and even the Romans didn't like wearing them. They had to be made to law that they had to wear them. I don't know why they didn't just stop wearing them. But if you want to do a hymation, this is actually 3 metres of white linen. So to tie this one, what you do is take one corner, fling it over your left shoulder, so that you can secure it in place there. For a man, it would be wrapped around and then sit over the arm. You might want to wrap it around twice with something this long, I'm not sure. Again, not a dress extraordinary. For women, it goes over the arm, so it makes a sort of shawl, and then comes around and sits over this arm. So now, my arms are not exposed, so that, you know, men won't get tempted by my beauty, I suppose. Then also, because of the way this is draped, if I can take the back of it up, I can put it over my head and use the rest of the fabric to create a veil. And Athenian women would be expected to, when they go outside, fully veil themselves because they shouldn't be seen in daylight at all. Only common women and prostitutes would have been allowed to be seen in public. So it was very much not a nice place to be a woman. Think of the worst, most sexist society on the earth today. That was democratic Athens 2,000 years ago. So this would be how a woman in Athens would have to go around. And men would just wear the hymation on its own. Again, Socrates didn't even wear shoes, just wore the hymation, and underwear just wasn't a thing. So there we are, 3 different styles of dress, 4 if you count the male version of the hymation as being different from the female one, but definitely 3 different styles of dress that can be done just by pinning pieces of fabric together, adding a little bit of a belt, maybe a ribbon or something to tie around the waist. But very easy to do, and I don't think you would be seen as being too odd if you were to walk around outside wearing something like this. I think it's a rather nice dress, if I do say so myself. If you do end up making something like this yourself, do let me know. Take a picture of it and tweet it at me. I would love to see. And I'll see you guys in the next video. See you in the next video.